Yeah, well, certainly keeping your attention, like Aquinas was pretty disciplined, I think, about his attention. And he was also amazing, amazing with his powers of concentration. There's stories about him, the ability to concentrate, where he would, not notice things happening around him because he's so focused on what he's doing, but also that he was able to dictate to multiple secretaries at the same time, different works. Kind of think of the chess grandmaster who's playing multiple chess games at the same time.
That's awesome.
Aquinas was doing stuff like that, but Aquinas also worked very hard, and we have some records of how hard he worked. At his peak production period, in his 40s, he was producing, I think it's 16 big folio pages a workday. I mean, if you can imagine how much energy it takes and concentration, and it's this is Aquinas' works. These are very high level, very high level philosophy and theology. That is amazing. Now he's not writing with modern footnotes and putting in all the citations and everything, and some of it is he's summarizing other people's arguments. But I mean, he's a amazingly brilliant thinker. I mean, you get to know some of the way that he worked. It's really impressive.
Do we have any of his handwriting?
We do.
And what's that like?
You know that his handwriting is famously illegible.
Yeah.
And that's probably because he was working so fast. Huh. One of the Dominicans that used to live, he's now deceased, but he used to live at the Dominican House of Studies. When I was a student brother, he was there. He's a church historian. He worked on the Leonine Commission. The Leonine Commission is a commission to produce the standard scholarly editions of Aquinas' works. So he was working on a part of Aquinas' early sentences commentary, basically Aquinas' doctoral dissertation, where we actually have some of his handwritten texts. So he had a talk that he gave about what you can learn about Aquinas from his handwriting. Oh. And it was really interesting because he said among the things that you can tell is Aquinas, he was writing with a quill pen. And so whenever he sat down to start work, he would use a knife to sharpen the quill. And then as you're writing, just like a pencil, it becomes a little duller over time. Yeah. So the line goes from being really thin to getting thicker, thicker, thicker.
Yeah.
And so you could see how long was Aquinas working in each of his work periods by how frequently he sharpened his quill, which is just really interesting. He said sometimes Aquinas had long work periods, other times he clearly got interrupted, because he's right in the middle of the sentence and he stops and then he's sharpening the quill pen. But Aquinas also clearly worked really fast because that's why his handwriting is sloppy. But also, sometimes he made really obvious mistakes. So he's okay, if you're an editor of Aquinas' text and you're reading the sentence and you see it in Aquinas' own handwriting, the end of the proof, it says, therefore God does not exist. Oh. It's okay, well, what do you do with that? Do you print it that way? Because that is what he wrote.
Authentic, really.
It's what he wrote, but is it what he meant?
Yeah,
no, it's not what he obviously didn't mean to say that. But it's like a typo that any of us could make. You just are, you don't write it out quite what you intended to say. But fascinating things like that. The other recent research has discovered in Aquinas' priory at one stage there was a bookmaking workshop. So this is Dominican friars are physically making books. So they've got sheepskin that they're using for the books, and they're cutting off the edges, and all of the little scraps that would fall onto the floor was supposed to be swept up at the end of the day and given to Brother Thomas Aquinas, which it seems he used as a system of note cards to organize all of his quotations and material, because he seems to have kept files of quotations from the church fathers so that he could organize them and use them in his academic work. It's really interesting when you think about the kind of work that Aquinas had to do to produce what we now read.
Yeah, it is.
But there's also, now maybe you know this story, this is actually attested in the earliest biographies of Aquinas, the people who lived with him.
Quick question, how many biographies do we have of him within living memory? It's several, isn't it?
There are a few. You're testing my memory now.
Yeah, that's all right.
I
but
do know this.
It's more than three.
Well, there's one of his, there are various early biographies, and some of them are kind of drawing on the same sources. So, when you go back and try and read all the biographical documents, which I did a few years ago for a research project that I had to do. I was asked to write a 20-page article on Aquinas' life and works.
Wow.
So this is not my specialty.
I want to read this article.
I'd be happy to send it to you.
Please.
You can find it. It's the first chapter of the New Cambridge Companion to Aquinas.
Wow.
So it came out 2 years ago, maybe. So it's an academic book. But anyway, I worked very hard on that chapter and reread all of those original sources, including the depositions for his canonization, which are people who actually knew him and then are testifying under oath about his life. But there was one miracle of Aquinas, like associated with his life, which was it's so weird that it has to be true, because no one would make this up. So it is very medieval. All right, so one day Aquinas discovered he was having trouble speaking because he had grown an extra tooth. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe wisdom teeth were coming in or something. I don't know. Or his tooth was whatever. Okay, so he prayed to God and then was granted the favor of being able to pull the tooth out. And he then put the tooth in a pouch that he wore around his neck for the rest of his life to remind him of the mercy that God had shown him in removing this impediment to his ability to teach and preach.
If you're anything like me, you sometimes reach the end of summer feeling a little spiritually drained and in need of rest. That's why I'm excited to tell you about St. Michael's Lent with Exodus 90. Rooted in an ancient tradition practiced by St. Francis of Assisi, this 40-day journey was born out of his deep devotion to St. Michael the Archangel. So, men, join us on August 15th for St. Michael's Lent and get ready to fight the good fight. That's exodus90.com/Matt.
I mean, that's so weird. What is...
It's so weird and so...
It's so weird that you can't imagine somebody would make it up.
No. Someone's not telling this to
No,
embellish.
but it also tells you something about... So he carried two things in this pouch around his neck for most of his adult life. One was the tooth, and the other was a relic of St. Agnes, who he had a great devotion to. St. Agnes, is one of the Roman martyrs, and Aquinas lived and taught in Rome for a number of years. And, he was an Italian guy. He was from between Rome and Naples, so not that far from Rome. And he had a great devotion to St. Agnes, and there was an occasion towards the end of his life when he was traveling with his traveling companion called his Socius, Reginald of Paperno, and they both got very sick. It's probable that they got malaria, and they both had fevers. Aquinas recovered quickly. Reginald was still sick for weeks, and they feared that he was going to die. Aquinas took the relic out, put it on Reginald's chest, prayed to St. Agnes, and Reginald was healed. And that led Aquinas then to promise his students that every year on St. Agnes's feast day, he would host them for a dinner, because he was, at that point, it was the end of his life. He was a famous professor in Naples, and the King of Naples paid him in gold for teaching in Naples. It was like a deal that the King of Naples had made with the Dominican order to get Aquinas assigned back to Naples because he was such a famous professor. And so Aquinas apparently had access to some of that money and promised to give a dinner for his students every year on Agnes's feast day, which he was only able to do once, and then he died. But it's like, these are interesting stories that are maybe not quite what you would expect from a Catholic saint. And that's part of the reason why, they seem to be very well historically attested. I mean, I think they're true.
Thanks very much for watching that clip. You can click the link below if you want to watch the full interview, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.